Now, good evening, everyone, to our sixth Greek lesson. And this is going to be the last Greek lesson before we have a little break for Easter. And I want to get you a little bit excited about Greek tonight by saying this, that with this lesson here, we have laid the foundation, okay? Because next lesson we come back, we are going to be translating quite a number of verses from John's Gospel, chapter 1. In other words, with the foundation of the stuff we have been doing up until this point, going through these masculine nouns, neuter nouns, verbs in the present tense, and tonight we're going to look at feminine nouns. You only have three sorts of nouns: masculine, feminine, and neuter. With us being able to cover the main masculine, feminine, and neuter nouns, and the main verbs in the present tense. Next time, we are actually going to be reading straight out of the Greek New Testament, virtually. So if you want to brag about Greek, it will be genuinely true that you'll be able to say to people, I read a number of verses out of the Greek New Testament in John chapter 1 next time, okay? Because that's the level of Greek we're getting to. John chapter 1 is pretty simple Greek, and John's first epistle is quite simple Greek. And with the stuff that we've learned with these nouns and all the funny endings on them, and with the verbs and the funny endings in the present tense, and some of these other words we use to connect them together, which are called conjunctions, like and but, and some of these other ones. By next lesson, we will be working through John's Gospel, chapter 1. Or it might be in the homework, I can't remember which it is. But so I want to encourage you that this week here, with the last of these categories of nouns, the feminine ones, which we're going to be looking at, we have a really good foundation for being able to actually read real Greek. Now, in the exercises so far, I'm giving you made up Greek, okay? In the homework questions and in the lesson exercises, I'm making up Greek sentences. But next time, we're actually going to be reading from God's word in Greek. So what I want to encourage you to do is use this holiday period to really work hard at really getting used to these nouns and the verbs in the present tense. And you will be using these everywhere from here on. So it's good so that these endings become a little bit more familiar. So work on some of the exercises, maybe if you're struggling with them. Work on the vocabulary as well, because for this course, we're going to try and learn about 300 words in vocabulary in Greek. And you need these words, okay? There's no two ways about it. You have to learn them. And we've learned the most common ones. Now, the book here, Mr. Duff, he gives about 600 Greek words to learn. You can go on and learn much more. But here's the thing. With the 300 words we are learning in the course, you are able to read the Reader's New Testament, the Reader's Greek New Testament you've got. Maybe Jonathan Hickson hasn't got it yet, but any words that you haven't learned in this 300, they will be down in the footnotes, and you can just quickly look down there to see what they are. So this is what we want by the end of the course, for you to be able to read this Reader's Greek New Testament. There will be some passages in the New Testament that will still be difficult for you. But with this vocabulary, you will know all of the words in the normal part that they're not giving you footnotes for. And the more rare words, you can just look down at the bottom of the page. So we're going to have a break till we won't come back on Easter Monday. We'll try and come back the week after Easter Monday. So it's about 3 weeks from now, 3 or 4, something like that. And yeah, just try and use that break to really reinforce these foundations, because these foundations, once you get a bit more familiar, and I suggest the best way to get more familiar with these words is just to use the homework exercises. Keep on working on them and use the extra exercises in the textbook in the same passages, just so that you get really familiar with this vocabulary and these nouns and their endings. Because honestly, it becomes incredibly encouraging to personally. When you start, you can open up a Greek New Testament and you can actually read sentences out of it. you feel like you're making some progress and you're getting somewhere. Don't be discouraged if the stuff you learn again today, you think, oh, more stuff, and it's a little bit different again. I'm learning new stuff. You've got a break over the holidays to keep on working on this, and it actually follows the same pattern and the same form as some of the stuff we've been learning with just a slight tweak. But yeah, it seems a bit overwhelming at first. Don't be discouraged if you can't remember it all at the time or even 1 week later. It's just by constantly, repeatedly doing a bit every week, working on the homework lessons, that it all becomes stuck in the memory. So that's what we're looking forward to be able to actually open our Greek New Testament and read it. So that's what we're going to be doing in lesson 7, okay? Which is, to me, really exciting, because when I did Greek, okay, I just had these made up exercises all through my Greek textbook right to the very end. And you were learning it's a much harder way, but you didn't get the payoff of the enjoyment of saying, I can actually read God's word in Greek. You were reading these made up sentences that the lecturer was making with his vocabulary lists instead of actually reading God's word. And I think the main point and the target of our course is to be able to read the Bible in Greek. So that's what we're going to be able to do. And I'm not kidding you. Next time we're going to be able to do that. We've just got to go to some of the easier parts of the New Testament. And look, you can read whole sentences there. So don't be too intimidated by the Greek if you're feeling a bit like that, because once this foundation is down, a lot of things become a lot simpler in terms of your reading ability, because you've got a lot of the stuff already on board to be able to read. And you've got the most common sort of things already on board. So let's quickly have a look at the homework from last week with the neuter nouns. That is going to be on the sheet that I sent through to you this week, because lessons 5 and 6 homework is together on the one sheet, and lessons 5 and 6 vocabulary, because there's not many neuter words. Okay, so let's go through them quickly. And again, if you're struggling with this still, it's just good repeating of this exercise of trying to work out what are these words, what are their endings. Don't be too off put by it. Just have a go at it, and we'll try and get through it as quick as possible. Or if you've got it written out in front of you, you can just read it off. So we'll start with Tim. This is lesson 5 homework, number 1, which is toteknon ekedemonion. I won't trouble you to pronounce it all. Let's just go for it.
Okay, I think this means the child has a demon.
This is correct. Toteknon is the child. Eki has demonion, a demon. Okay, John, number 2. Read that one out for us, please.
I'm going to be honest, I haven't done the homework, but I'll give it a good crack. Number 2, hoi adelphoi la lusin to euangelion to prosopo tu doulou.
Okay,
Right.
so you just break it up a number of words at the same time.
The brothers.
The brothers, correct.
Say they
Speak.
they call
Speak.
they speak
Speak.
the good news to the face of the slaves.
To the face
faces
of, to the face
the slave.
of the slave. All singular there. Now those to prosopo should have that little I underneath, but it's very hard to remember what key on an English keyboard gets you that little iota subscript. So forgive me for not putting those in. We normally do have to write those in. So the brothers, they speak, or the brothers speak. And this is the good thing when you're translating Greek into English. You only have to recognize what that word is, okay? You don't have to worry about the endings of it, because it's just the word speak. The brothers speak. When you're going Greek to English, it's much easier than going English to Greek, okay? Because in In English to Greek, you've got to write out and remember what the endings are. You've only got to recognize what that vocab is in there. And you can understand why it's got a certain ending. And the more you read Greek like this, the more you start remembering the endings too. Even if you can't remember them now, you only have to recognize the vocab. And then you speak, because English is simple. Okay, number 3 for Sharon.
Well, first of all, I was going to say the Monday after Easter is Anzac Day.
Oh, maybe we'll have to have a 4-week break. Maybe we'll just have to get back into Greek on Anzac Day. To me. Anyway, we'll have to think about that.
Okay, so it is Tirumin to Sabbaton, and that is we keep the Sabbath.
We keep the Sabbath. Very good. Good evening, Thomas.
Hi, Andrew. Sorry I'm late.
No troubles. Have a go at the quiz on your own there, and just text me through the score in the how many you reckon you got right. You can look at the vocab sheet to check yourself, okay? We're just going over some of the homework from last week, going through some of these new to nouns at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, we keep Tirumen tos Sabaton. Let's go Dennis, number 4.
Number 4. Poilson to Ergon.
Correct.
They are doing the work.
They're doing the work. Very good. Poieo. They are doing the work. Number 5, Tim.
Luomen to.
The one above. Number 5.
Okay. Ho anthropos zite to iron to kuru, which I think means the man seeks the temple of the Lord.
Correct. Excellent. All the words correct. Okay, John, number 6.
Luomen to pluion kai lambanomen auto. We loose the boat and we take it.
Correct. Okay, and Sharon, number 7 to finish off with.
To teknon zite simia to theo.
Good.
The child.
Sorry, go.
The child seeks signs of God.
The child seeks a sign of God.
Oh, okay.
Good. All right. So there's the homework stuff there.
And last week we didn't get time to do the second part of the exercise. And that was also homework.
Oh, okay. Now you're dobbing us in.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to quickly run through and check them. That's all.
Okay, very good. So let me just see if I can find that homework, that class exercise.
Dad, can I just ask why number 7, the child seeks, why is it a sign and not signs?
Where's that number?
7. To teknon zite simea. Isn't that they are for? Doesn't
you're
the
right.
neuter plurals it ends in a?
You are quite correct. The child seeks signs of God. Semeon is the singular. Semeia is the plural.
I got you, Sharon. You were right.
Thanks, John.
Oh, it's a bad day when your students know more than the teacher, isn't it?
It must be his genetics.
Okay, so where did we get up to? Well, we didn't do exercise 2.
That's right.
All right, let's do it. Well, let's do the odd ones on this just to help us reinforce again these neuter nouns. So I'm going to share this screen just so it's up on the page here, everyone. Okay. So here it was, Greek class exercise lesson 5, but we'll do exercise 2, and we'll just do the odd numbered ones just to help us drill ourselves through it. Dennis, would you like to start with number 1, please?
Toyota Erga to Theo.
2 Theo, good.
Two Theo. Yeah. Give me a minute, please. Something God. Work of God.
Correct. What's poio? It's actually in the dictionary, it's poieo. Anybody help Dennis out?
I do the work of God.
I do the work of God. Anyone improve on that slightly? That's very close.
The works.
The works. Ergon, singular, erga, plural. Very good. Okay. Sharon, number 3. Angeloi lalusen to techno.
I
What is
had
that?
angels speak to the child.
Correct. To techno is to the child or for the child, but it's going to be to the child here with a word like lalusen. Okay, number 5, John. Hodidasklos tere to sabaton tu theou.
The teacher keeps the Sabbath of God.
Correct. Okay, and Tim, what about number 7?
Number
Hothios
7.
eki. I'll read that for you in Greek. Hothios eki hieron to sabato.
Okay. The God or God has. I know Iran is temple, I think.
Correct.
And the Sabbath. So God has the temple. It's not the temple of Sabbath.
No,
It's
not the
plural, isn't
temple
it?
of the. It's going to be God has a temple for the Sabbath.
Okay. That makes sense.
Okay. How are you going, Thomas? Have you finished the quiz there?
Yeah, I've done the quiz.
Okay. Would you like how many did you get on that?
I think I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9.
Very
I'm
good.
not sure what 8 is. What's pros?
Prosopon?
Prosopon.
Prosopon is face.
Face. Oh, right.
Yes. Don't worry about that word. You'll run into it so many times in the New Testament that you will get used to it. Would you like to have a go at number 9 on the screen here?
All right. Ho anthropos kale ton teknon to ero.
Good.
The man calls the child. Is it? The child. I don't know the last. I don't know the last one.
To the temple. Hiero is
Oh.
hieron, temple, and to hiero is going to be to or for the temple. So we'll probably go with to the temple here. The man calls the child to the temple. Good. Any other questions from anyone about any questions that I might have had things wrong on that homework or that other exercise there? All
Did we
good?
go through 3 and 4 on this, or we don't have to?
We were just jumping through the odd ones here. Would you like to do number 4 as well? No? Okay. What about we do number 6? Who can translate number 6? This one's nice. This one's a nice, tricky one.
I'll have a shot.
Okay.
Eke prosopa angelon.
Okay, very good. First of all, Thomas, what is prosopa?
Face.
Correct.
Prosopa.
Keep on going, Dennis. Have a go at the rest of it.
As in translate or read?
Translate.
Children has faces of angels.
Children has faces of angels. Anyone agree with that or disagree with that?
Well, I had children have faces of angels, but same thing.
Children have faces of angels. Very good. What is the grammatical rule that we are seeing in this example?
That the plural neuter noun takes the singular verb.
Correct. So normally we would say in English, children have faces of angels, but in Greek they say children has faces of angels. So eki is the third person singular, but tekna is plural. So you won't find that very much in the New Testament. Occasionally you'll stumble across a case where you have a plural neuter noun and you have a singular verb that's acting on. But normally in Greek, the two things have to agree. If it's plural nouns, you have to have plural verb. This is the one exception. Who knows why the Greeks thought of this great rule for their language, but they did. All right, so let's kill that screen. I'll just put this score back in here again for Thomas. 9. Okay, now Thomas, you weren't here for my little monologue before, but with this week 6, we're going to have, after this, we're going to have holidays for a few weeks. And the really good thing, the really good news is that next time we come back, lesson 7, we are actually going to be reading through lots of verses in John's Gospel, chapter 1, virtually straight out of John's Gospel. And what that means is the stuff we've done in these 6 lessons, particularly with these 3 sorts of nouns, masculine, feminine, and neuter nouns, we're going to look at feminine ones today, and the verb endings in the present tense, that allows us to make a huge step in terms of being able to actually read the Greek New Testament. Now, I find that myself personally very encouraging, that you're actually able to open the Greek New Testament and read it, okay? So I want to encourage you to work really hard at the vocabulary and the exercises we've done, so that this stuff over these 6 lessons, you get more familiar with it. Just keep on working with it a bit every week over the holidays. And next time, we are going to be actually reading the Greek New Testament. Now, this is the aim of the game. This is the whole point of the course. John's Gospel, chapter 1, is one of the easiest chapters in the New Testament to read, which is incredible because it's one of the most profound chapters in the New Testament. But it's actually quite simple vocabulary, and you can read it. Once you've done these things we've done here, plus a few little words I'm going to throw in next week for vocabulary, okay, next time. So don't be discouraged by all the stuff we've had to learn and all the fancy, silly endings. They put everything on every single word. And don't be discouraged by the vocabulary. Keep on working at it. Because, yeah, from now on in, we're going to be able to read the Greek New Testament. Okay, and there are lots more difficult parts of the New Testament than John chapter 1. But it gives you a huge psychological boost that you're actually reading the thing. Okay, so let's have a look at feminine nouns. This is the third sort of noun. I'll share the screen. And the man in the book, Mr. Duff, he puts it nicely. He says, you could call these nouns type 1, type 2, and type 3. The word feminine nouns does not mean that all feminine nouns are female. Okay, it's a grammatical gender, not a biological gender that we're talking about. The man in the book, he says, when we talk of masculine, feminine, and neuter, this refers to a grammatical gender, which is a way of classifying nouns. Sometimes it will match what English speakers might think the gender of the nouns should be, but sometimes it will not. In effect, rather than talking of masculine, feminine, and neuter nouns, we could just as well talk about class 1, class 2, and class 3 nouns, or even blue, green, and yellow nouns. Gender is just a way of grouping together nouns that behave in similar ways. In other words, the endings are similar. So it is true that a lot of females in the New Testament, they will have feminine nouns, noun endings. So this is why they use masculine, feminine, and neuter. But the Greeks, they classify virtually everything as masculine and feminine. Not many things are neuter. Okay, so anyway, this is the feminine nouns tonight. And if you compare the feminine nouns and the masculine nouns, you'll find that they're actually very similar in their endings, except that the feminine nouns have substituted an eta or an alpha instead of an o sound. Okay, so here is agape, which is the word love. And you'll notice, for example, you remember logon or logos word, the masculine noun, its dative plural or its indirect object plural is logois. Do you see the way down here they have on the last line of the chart, the feminine noun changes the O to an A. That's all the difference is, okay? The omicron sound in logos becomes a alpha or an eta. So it's this ending of the sounds. And the genitive plural, it's exactly the same as the masculine. All genitive plurals have on the ending of them. Okay, so they're all exactly the same. Here is the accusative agapas. In the masculine, it's agapus or logus. So the OU has become an A sound. In masculine, it's logoi, but here it becomes agapai. The O has become an A. So there is a method to the madness, okay? There is an actual pattern here that you can spot. In the masculine, it would be logo, and the omega with the iota subscript underneath, it's become agape with the iota subscript on it. So there's a lot of similarity. The masculine, the nominative or the subject and the genitive in the feminine are a little bit different, but the accusative, the direct object, it again, same pattern. It would be logos, logon. And that logon, the O-N just becomes E-N. Okay? So there is a lot of similarity between these masculine nouns and feminine nouns. There's not too many dissimilarities. The feminine nouns all finish with an A or an eta, alpha or eta. So here's agape, agapine, agape. So this is the one big difference. The genitive, they have an eta sigma. You'll notice that the article, the word the, it follows the endings exactly. So everything rhymes. He agape, ten agapine, tes agapes, te agape, hi agapi, tas agapas, ton agapon, tais agapais. Okay, let's just have a read through here. Thomas, would you like to read out this first paragraph here for first bullet point, please?
Feminine nouns are quite similar in their endings to masculine nouns, except that an E or A sound replaces the O or U sound. Thus we have agape, agape for
Yep.
logon, and agape for logo, and agape for
Agapi.
agapi for logoi, and agapas for logos, agapis for logois, while agapon, genitive plural, has an identical ending to logon. There are a few differences too.
Okay, good. Tim, would you like to read the next two paragraphs here, please?
The feminine article, the, follows the feminine noun pattern exactly.
That's not quite true. That's not quite true, is it? It does have one dissimilarity, and that is the article. It takes the T or the tau letter on everything but the subject. In the subject, in the singular, it's he, not te, and in the plural, it's hi, not tai. This is the same as the masculine article, though. Remember, it's ho logos, not to logos, but then it's ton logon. So it follows, in a sense, the way that the masculine article, when it's the subject of a sentence, it doesn't have the t. It just has he and hi. Okay.
And Andrew.
Yep.
That first bullet point, I'm just a bit confused there in terms of the where it says thus we have agapen for logon. Wouldn't that be two different words right there? Or I mean, I might be missing something.
Yes, they are two very different words. Agapane is a feminine noun, but we're just comparing the endings on a masculine noun. So just notice the last two letters. You look at the last two or three letters from all of these pairs we put here. Agapane, last two letters, are very similar to logon, except an A-class vowel. We'll call them an A-class vowel, which is an alpha or an eta. That substitutes for an O-class vowel, an omicron, an omega, or an OU sound. We'll call them A-class and O-class vowels. Now, the feminine nouns, they take A-class endings in the place of the masculine O-class endings. All right? So you look through all that list there and you'll see that the ending in the feminine word, agape, it matches the masculine ending, except it just subs a class vowel.
So all is right. That corresponding to the Mr. Duff's textbook of page 34 where he talks about the different noun endings. Am I right to say that?
34 different noun endings.
The part is the idea of gender, that section.
He's not really talking about it so much there. Here's a little bit. It's just that agape is a feminine word. Logos is a masculine word, and there are a lot of similarities between the endings of masculine and feminine nouns, except they just change the last syllable's vowel sound. That's the main difference, but there's a lot of similarity too. Okay, so you guys are doing pretty well with your nouns in terms of when you're translating in my hearing anyway. One way to remember the endings of all of these nouns is just to drill them into your head repetitively. So logos in the masculine, logos, logon, logu, logo, logoi, logus, logon, logois. Same with the verb pattern. Luo, lues, lue, luomen, lueta, luusen. And once you get one of those patterns in your head, and you usually start with the masculine, it's pretty easy then to just tweak one of the letters on the ending of these things in the feminine, okay, or in the neuter. You know, there's a few little changes, and you don't need to try and remember saying over in your head over lots of times the feminine nouns to get all their endings into your head. Once you've just got the masculine endings into your head, and you know that, well, the feminine follows pretty closely, then when you're looking at the Bible and you're reading it in Greek, you get a lot of help from the context as well, whether there's plural people speaking or what the subject, what the events are, what's the action that's happening. So it's not too hard to translate from Greek into English. Once you just remember the masculine noun forms, and you can change pretty easily in your head with time and practice to the feminine endings. You can be a superhero student and just memorize everything, okay? Memorize all the female forms, the feminine forms, the neuter forms, the masculine forms, all the forms of the verbs, but you don't actually have to do that. You only have to memorize the one of them and just remember, okay, in the neuter it changed a little bit here, in the feminine it changed a little bit here, and just keep on reading your Greek New Testament without becoming a Greek professor. Okay, Tim, keep on going with the third bullet point there, please.
Most feminine nouns end in E, but there are also feminine nouns ending in A, in which the plural ending stays the same, but there are some changes in the singular cases.
Okay, so, yep, there are one or two different forms of feminine nouns, and they just swap in an eta sound for an alpha sound, or vice versa. So here is hemera. It finishes with a alpha instead of agape, which was above. Agape finished with an eta sound, and you'll see that instead of the eta all the way through the singular, you have this alpha here. Instead of agape, you have hemera. Instead of agapein, you have hemeran. So again, once you've memorized the vocabulary and you are roughly familiar with the feminine, you can pick it when you're reading it. You can spot it. You can say, oh, that's the word day, hemera. And then you can work out what the ending is. Looking at the context and looking at the endings, don't stress too much about these endings. That's all I'm saying. They are pretty much intuitive once you start getting reading. You think, okay, what's the context here? What's happening in this sentence? If I have to look really hard at the sentence, I can break it down. That is a singular, not a plural noun. It looks like a feminine with the eta or the alpha ending, and the feminine pretty similar to the masculine endings, but they just stick in an A class vowel. So don't sweat it too much, okay? The best thing, listen, seriously, the best way to learn to read the Greek New Testament is just to start reading it. Don't memorize every single thing in the Greek grammar book that we've got or in my notes. Once you start reading and reading and reading the Greek New Testament, which we will hope to be able to do next time, you just get these patterns and they just start becoming more natural. Okay, it takes a little bit of time, but don't stress too much about trying to remember all these things. But the Greek language is very mathematical. It is very, very precise. Everything works like clockwork, the way it should. Everything follows a pattern. So here we have feminine nouns ending in alpha, like hemera, which means day. And the rule is that if the stem ends in a vowel or in the letter rho, then you have this form. But if the feminine noun ending in a, the stem ends with a consonant, like doxa, the consonant xa, x, before the a, then you have a slightly different one. But it doesn't matter, okay, because when you're reading Greek, as long as you can pick what the word is, you can say, oh, that's doxa. That is glory. You don't even worry looking at the endings of them. Honestly, you don't when you're reading. You just read it like English. So all feminine nouns all have A's down in the plural. All of them have agapai, agapas, agapon, agapais. Same with these two different sorts of feminine ones ending in A sounds. They all end in A. It's just in the singulars. Agape has an eta here, an eta, and hemera has an alpha. Doxa, it has both of them. It has the alpha and the eta. But don't stress about it. Don't worry too much about it. All right, one last thing, and we'll get...
I might be stressing now. How do you know where the stem stops?
Well, with a feminine noun, you just chop off the A on the end. So hemera, chop off the A, there is your stem. Now, as I say, you can be an absolute Greek professor and work through until you, with your exercises, learning your Greek grammar, you can memorize all these different endings of different sorts of feminine nouns. But you don't have to. Honestly, the most important thing we want to do is to be able to read Greek. And when you're reading Greek, oftentimes the context will tell you everything about what's happening in the sentence. You don't even need to think about what is the subject, what is the genitive, all of this stuff here. The context will tell you when you're reading the actual narratives in the Gospels. You'll see this very soon. But this is just giving you a bit of information, okay? And the main information tonight is feminine nouns. They have A-class endings instead of the O-class endings that we saw in the masculine nouns. That's it. That's the main thing to remember tonight. And you can look at these sheets when you're doing the exercises, help you work with them. Okay, so John, would you like to read us this last bullet point down the bottom?
The third person pronoun autos, he, altes, she, and auto, it, follows the endings of masculine, feminine, and neuter nouns, except that auto, the nominative and accusative, neuter single, except that auto rather than ergon. What does that mean?
So that sentence is missing a word somewhere in there. But you notice auto is not quite the same as the neuter noun. In the singular, it's auto instead of auton. Whereas ergon, a neuter noun, ends in ergon, O-N. But they're identical apart from that. Anyway, don't worry about that too much. You can read about it a bit more on page 39 of Mr. Duff, where he lists them out in full, all the parts of autos. But again, the trick is pretty simple. If you see the O-class noun, it's going to be masculine or maybe neuter, but neuter is very rare. If it's got an A-class vowel like alte, it's going to be she, not a he. Okay. All right, so you can maybe keep that screen up there while we do a class exercise on it. And we'll have a look at How are we going for time? It's 6:30. Okay, we better move on. Let's I'll put this up on the screen. Let's work through these. Oh, I forgot to give you vocabulary. Let's get the vocabulary up instead. So here we go. That was the neuter one. Here are some feminine nouns. Now, feminine nouns, there are a lot more than neuter nouns. Last week was pretty good for neuter nouns because there are not very many neuter nouns. But here are some common Greek nouns. And you're going to see some of these in John's Gospel, chapter 1. I'll go through them pretty quickly. Agape is love. Now, this one is one of my favorite words in the Greek language because, number one, preachers in English try to pronounce it, okay? They'll say agape, or they'll say agape, or they'll pronounce it. I even heard of one preacher. Now, in English, when we write out this, we write out A-G-A-P-E. And I even heard one preacher who pronounced the Greek word as agape. Now, we do have a word in English for agape. It means my mouth is open. My chin has hit the floor in astonishment at your ignorance. That is how one preacher pronounced the Greek word for love, agape. Okay, so that might help you. But you've probably already heard preachers talking about agape or agape. Arche is beginning, okay? And we have archaeology, which is a study of ancient things or beginnings. We get a lot of words in English from arche. So hierarchy, and I won't tell you why we get hierarchy out of arche, but you can just remember that arche means beginning. Okay, ge, which is earth or land, we get geology, geography from this word here. Zoe, this is where we get zoo from. This means life. Phony, we get our English word telephone from this. It means sound or voice. Suki, the Hanes have a dog called Suki. Okay, they named their dog. Sorry, Thomas, but you don't know who the Hanes are. They're a family in Wavell Heights Assembly in Brisbane. And David Hane, when he was doing my Greek course a few years ago, he got so excited about some things that he called his dog's name Suki. And you could call your dog Suki if you wanted to, but it's probably better pronounced Psyche, okay, like what we have here. Remember I told you the Greeks have, modern Greeks, they have a different sort of way of sounding some of these nouns. Anyway, Suki or Psyche means life or soul, and you can see this word is used in lots of different ways in our Greek New Testament. So I won't go into it more for the moment, but there we have it. Hamartia, this is the word for sin, and literally in Greek it means to miss, to not hit. You see the a in the front, like in atheist, the prefix a, the prefix alpha, negates. So sin is to miss the mark. Hamartia, it's got a H on the front of it, a rough breathing, and theologians talk about the doctrine of sin. They talk about hamartiology. Basilia, very common word again. It means kingdom. When I was growing up in Sydney, there was a boy around the corner, and his name, if you can believe it, was Basil Piperides. And he was a slightly annoying little Greek fellow. And my mum actually made up a song about him that went, "Oh, Basil Piperides." Anyway, Basil is the Greek word for king. Okay, imagine calling your boy king. That's basically his name. Basilia means kingdom. Ecclesia, you might have heard this word before, is another one that preachers sometimes mention. Ecclesia means church or congregation or gathering or assembly or group. In Acts chapter 19, we have an ecclesia. It's a mob of rioting Ephesians. So an ecclesia is just a group or a gathering of people. The word we get church from. Hemera. When I was in year 7 or 8 in English, we had to learn the poetry of Keats. famous English or Irish poet. And I remember him using this word ephemeral in his poetry. And it means lasting for a day. The things of earth are very ephemeral. They are here today, gone tomorrow. So this is where we get ephemeral from. It's this word hemera, which means day. Cardia, as in cardiology, the study of the heart. Hora is hour, so that's a rough breathing on there. That's Hora. This is where we get our word hour from. And horology is the study of time, I think, or clocks or something like that. Doxa means glory. And we speak about a doxology in the Bible. What we mean is where someone is giving glory or praise to God. That is called a doxology. So often at the end of some epistles, we will have the apostle gives a doxology. They'll say, now unto him who, and they'll say, be glory forever and ever. That is a doxology, speaking doxa. And one last one. This is where the ploion goes. The boat goes in thalassa, in the sea. And because the disciples were fishermen, and because a lot of the stuff in the New Testament, in the Gospels, happens around the thalassa of Galilee, boats and sea occur quite a number of times in the New Testament. So thalassa means sea. That's a bit of a strange one. We don't use anything like that in English for sea. But hey, a lot of these other words, we do use them quite a lot. Apart from agape and from thalassa, most of these words are used elsewhere in English, and more than just once. They're often used in a number of different English words. So feminine nouns, they're not too bad. There are some rare ones which are a bit hard to remember. So let's skip over to a class exercise, and you can keep this sheet of paper up on your screen. You can look at your sheet of paper while we do this class exercise to help us work with some of this vocabulary. Let's go through, we won't have time for all of it maybe, but we'll go through these feminine nouns. What about Thomas? Would you like to start with that first one in exercise 1? Just say what the actual word is without worrying about endings. See if you can spot what the word is and the meaning of it. Sorry, I'll make that a bit bigger. Okay, how's that?
Yeah.
So,
Agape.
Yes. And what's the basic word?
That's love. And
yes. And is it
which
you can use the other sheets we've been working
I think
through?
it's the accusative.
Yes.
Is it singular?
Singular is correct. So it's like log on in the masculine. Accusative singular. Okay, let's go Tim for number 2.
Geese.
Yep.
Ge is earth.
Yes.
Earth or land.
Yep.
And it is must be genitive.
Genitive, singular or plural?
Singular.
Singular is correct. Okay, John, number 3.
Zoe.
Correct. What is Zoe?
Life.
Life is
it's in the dative singular.
dative singular is correct. Okay, Sharon.
Is it phone?
Phonai, yes.
Phone, okay.
And what is the basic meaning?
The basic meaning is sound.
Yes, or voice.
I was literally about to say telephone.
Yep.
And then it is plural nominative.
Correct. Good. So that would be sounds. Okay, and Dennis. Try and pronounce that one.
Psyches.
Psyches. Okay, good.
Life.
Yes,
It's dative plural.
correct. Okay, and back to Thomas.
Ecclesion.
Yes,
That's church or assembly.
yes.
Um, is it nominative?
No,
No.
it's going to be genitive plural. All masculines, all masculines, neuter and feminine have exactly the same form. Omega N on the genitive plural. So this is going to be of churches. So masculine nouns, it will be logon. Neuter nouns, it will be ergon. Feminine nouns, ecclesion. All mean genitive plural, possessive plural. Okay, Tim, second last one.
Humerus.
Humerus.
And it is singular genitive.
Very good. Or it could also be what? Could also be in addition to singular genitive,
It could be plural accusative.
plural accusative. How do we tell the difference between them? Well, the answer is often we will have an article out the front, the word the, and they will have two different things. There will be tas, and there will be, is it tas as well? Let's see. It might be tas for both of them. Let me just check that. Where are we? 5, 6. It is. Yes, the difference is the word the for the genitive singular is tes, whereas the accusative plural is tas. So the Greeks have thought of it. So whereas hemeras, the word, it can either be genitive singular or plural accusative. The word the often will be able to help us work out which one is which. It'll be tes and tas. And usually it's just a case of using the context in the sentence to think about it and work it out. Okay, very good. So there is the way again that it is. You can see hemeras there for genitive singular. And plural accusative, hemeras, exactly the same. Doxes, doxas, it changes. And up here for agapein, it's agapes and agapas. But look at this over here, tes and tas. That helps us tell it apart. Okay, so sorry to trouble you with all of that again. So here we go. Where were we? Hemeras. It could be singular genitive or it could be plural accusative. And last one, John Wilson, cardias.
Is heart, and its two could be genitive, singular, or plural accusative.
Very good. Okay, so let's have a quick go at some of these exercises here in exercise 2. We might see some cases where we have to work out just from context which is which. So these will test you guys out a little bit. Use all the cheat sheets you want, though, to work through it. Don't be troubled about looking at all these other information sheets. Let's start with Sharon for number 1.
I just had a question.
Yes.
What is the distinction between the two different words for life?
Well, the word psyche has it has to do with the soul, okay, psychology. But the strange thing is, okay, that for example, some famous verses in the New Testament. What shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his own soul? The word soul there is psyche. So you could translate it, what shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own life? But what is a soul? Okay, this is an interesting question, as opposed to a spirit. And the psyche is the real me, if you like. Okay, the inner me. The spirit is the part of us that is almost like the non-physical part we have from God. And the psyche is what the personality we develop with those two parts of our constituent being, our spiritual component and our physical component. With them, you develop your own personality, your own psyche, your own soul, okay? It's the real you in control of the machine, if you like. So I don't know if that explains it all, but the word, if you have a look both at the Hebrew word for soul, which is nephesh, and the Greek word for soul, which is psyche, both of them, you look at how many times they're translated in the Bible, and there's an even split between soul and life. Both of them, sometimes you cannot translate it as soul. You have to translate it as life. And sometimes it doesn't make so much sense to translate it as life. You have to translate it as soul. But it's a very interesting word. And as the Epistle to the Hebrews says, it's a bit hard to tell the difference between soul and spirit because they're mysterious sorts of things. So just being aware that this word psyche can mean life, but think of it as more soul, okay? It's an easy way to distinguish it. Psyche, just put an equation mark in your mind. Psyche equals soul. But remember that sometimes you need to translate it as life. Yeah. Now, there is another word in Greek for life, and that is bios, okay, which we get biology from. So Greek has a lot of words for life. And they all just, well, bios means more biological life. Okay, the fact that, and bios also means you're living. In other words, how much money you've made. You remember it says in the parable of the prodigal son, he divided to them his living. That's the father. That's the word bios, but it often means just sort of physical life. So these words get used in the Greek New Testament in various ways. And yeah, I just it's not a problem to just translate them all as life in your head, but I think it's worth translating psyche as soul, as your basic translation. And then if you look at the context and you think, well, that doesn't make sense, well, maybe think of life. And you'll see exactly the same thing in Hebrew with the Hebrew word for soul. That oftentimes it means life or person, even just person. Anyway, you have a look at your Abbott Smith if you've got an Abbott Smith, and look up the word psyche in it, and look up the word Zoe, and look up the word bios, and see the variety of ways in which they're translated. Okay, forgive me pontificating.
Sorry, that was my fault.
You were just trying to buy time while you worked out what was in.
Well, I haven't worked it out because I was interested in what you were saying. Okay, so number 1 says, "Hey, ecclesia, lege to Iesu, kuri." And then the last word is pistuomen.
Very good. Well pronounced as well. Very good. Now, there's one word in here which you might not be familiar with. This is kurios, but it's in the vocative. In other words, the direct address. We haven't talked about this case very often. The vocative is where it's the case, not where it's the subject or the object or the genitive. It is the case of direct address. So this is Lord, exclamation mark, okay? The rest of it, you should be able to work your way through.
Yeah, I should. So the church.
Correct.
Says,
the church says, correct.
The church says
to Jesus.
Oh, to Jesus. Okay. The church
Yes.
says to Jesus.
Keep on going here.
Lord. And then the last word is
Pistuo. Anyone? Pistuo?
Oh yeah, we had that.
What's pistuo? Anyone?
We believe in. Pistuomen, that one we believe.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if you've got Duff there, turn to page 39. And in this chapter here, he talks about the name Jesus. And Jesus, Jesus, it is declined, or its endings are unique. I don't know if that's because of Christians using it so much or what the reason is, but here is what he says on page 38 at the bottom. I'll read it out. 3.5, Jesus is unique, at least in grammatical form. The name Jesus, or Joshua, declines in a similar way too, but not quite the same as Logos. The variations are the result of the strong oo sound dominating the normal endings. And he gives the forms here. Nominative or subject is Jesus. Accusative is Yesun. But the other three cases are all Yezu. Do you remember some ancient hymns? They will say Yezu or Jesu. Jesu, joy of man's desiring.
Mm-hmm.
This name Jesus here, it only has three cases, okay? Three case endings anyway. When it gets to genitive, it's Yezu, which we would expect. Dative, however, stays Yezu, and the vocative is also Yezu. We can tell this is, how can we tell this is what case Jesus is in here in this example?
Well, because it's got the cat. Oh no.
Anyone? How can we tell which case it's in? Because of the article in front of it.
Yeah.
The tells us this is the dative. To. So the church says to Jesus, Lord, we believe. Okay, so yeah, basically in English, whenever you see Jesus, Yesun, Yesu, you know it's Jesus. And in English, Jesus doesn't have any different endings, so it doesn't really bother you what the endings are on Jesus. It's always going to be Jesus when you translate it. Okay, you don't have to have different endings in English for how you write out Jesus. So you've just got to be aware that there's a few different endings on Jesus, Yesun, Yesu. Okay, let's go Dennis for number 2.
Alte filie te cardia otes.
Good.
She loved her heart.
Very close. Okay, very good. She loves, that's correct. Now, the rest of it is in the dative, te cardia. Now, we would normally say to the heart. She loves to the heart or for the heart. But we're going to see that the dative also contains the idea of location in the next one of the next few lessons. She loves in heart, in the heart. And autes is of her. So it would be she loves with the heart or in the heart of her. She loves with her heart or she loves in her heart. We're going to see why you can translate that in that way pretty soon. But here at this stage, you look at that and you think that doesn't make sense in the normal ways I'm thinking about. How would you normally translate something to do with loving and heart? You could translate that she loves to her heart, but that doesn't make sense. She loves for her heart. That's a bit weird.
With.
I was
With her
thinking, but
Okay, so we're going to see in a few lessons' time where all these case endings comes from, okay, and why we have all these funny endings. We're going to see, and you're going to see how it's all explained historically, and it'll make a little bit more sense why they even got these endings when we see some of the words they stick in the New Testament to explain this stuff. Anyway, for the moment, we can't do that. We haven't learnt these other words yet. So let's go, Thomas, number 3.
He Basilai Zetai G.
Gene, hard G.
Is it
We
G
say
as well or G?
G, hard G. We say geography, but the Greeks, they say geography.
Oh, it's a gain. Okay, it's a gain.
Yeah.
Not sure if I got this right, but is it the kingdom seeks land?
Correct. Good.
Oh.
The kingdom is seeking land. Okay, let's go, Tim, number 4. Now, I haven't given you a word in here yet. So this third word here, ooh, I don't think I've given you. Maybe I gave it to you in one of the ones. It's the word not.
Not.
Ooh, okay. I think we might have had it, but
We
maybe
did.
not.
We have done that, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I ecclesiae u Philucentine Amartian.
Good. Okay. Now, 2 of those words have the rough breathing on. It's a bit hard to see there. The first word is high, and hamartian at the end. It's got the H in front of it too. Don't worry. Keep on going.
Okay. So we have the church.
Yep. It's in the
The
plural.
churches, not.
Yes.
Philucin, which is we love. So the churches not love the what's the last one? Sin.
Correct. The churches do not love sin. Now we're going to see that sometimes they stick the Greek word the in before some of these abstract nouns like sin. They'll stick the word the in there when in English we wouldn't. So, yeah. Okay, number 5. Who were we with that? John.
Number 5. He ge kai ho uranos akuusen tain phonein tu theou.
Good.
The earth and the heaven. Is that right? The heaven?
Yep.
Or the heaven and earth hear the sound of God.
Yep. Or the voice of God.
The sound voice of God.
Okay, very good. Number 6, Sharon, don't worry about reading out the Greek. Just go for a translation trip.
Okay. This is that where we were talking about. So
Yeah.
life or soul, the life,
Yes.
soul. Of
The man.
Yeah. So is it the soul of man, or do I
Yep.
say of the man?
It could be either. We would have to see the context really to see what's being spoken about. But let's just go with either at the moment. Who is that
Who.
word? Is not.
Not, yeah. Tire. See, they're all familiar, but my head doesn't remember.
That's the word keeps. The soul of man does not keep.
Does not keep. Yeah. The name of God.
Nearly. Nomon is law.
Law. Yeah, that's right.
Name is onoma. So those two get confused quite easily. The soul of man, or the soul of the man, does not keep the law of God. Dennis, number 7.
Hotheos eke Basilian o Tesgis.
Good.
The kingdom of God has no land.
Nearly.
Oh,
It's
wait.
it's not the kingdom of God. It's the God.
The God.
Eke.
There's a kingdom of no land.
Nearly.
Okay.
God has a kingdom not of the earth, shall we say.
Not of the earth. Okay.
Yes. So geese can be land or it can be earth. Earth as in the dry, rubbly, crumbly stuff, not the planet so much, although sometimes it is contrast the earth and the heaven. Okay. God has a kingdom not of the earth. Thomas, number 8. Now, this is an actual verse straight out of the Bible, and a bonus point for next week's quiz, or even for today's quiz, if you can tell me what verse in the Bible this is without looking it up anywhere. What is this verse? This is straight out of the Bible, this one. Don't worry about reading the Greek, just translate it for me, Thomas.
Or just translate it, all right?
Yeah.
The beginning of
Yes.
the good news of Jesus
Yes.
Christ, Son of God.
Good. What verse is it from?
Is that Mark?
Anyone know?
Chapter 1?
Mark
Chapter
chapter 1, verse 1.
Verse 1.
So that is your first actual proper Greek verse that you have read. The beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Okay. Very good. Tim, number 9. I'll give you another point on the quiz for that, Dennis. Thomas.
Okay.
You got 10 for today. Whoops, sorry, everybody. Just give us a second. I'm not helping you here, am I? What's happened there? Whoops, sorry. Thomas up to 10. Other people are going to be appealing for extra marks when they do outstanding feats of Bible memorization or something like that too now. Sorry, everyone. Tim, number 9. Don't worry about the Greek, just give me the translation.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Okay. The God makes or does
Yes.
no, what's that word? Hemeras is hemeras. Day.
Yes.
So God makes the day and the Oras, not Horas. What's
Yes.
Horas? I'm not sure what Horas is, but is it the night? I don't know.
No, hour. The hours.
Day and the hours. Okay. Tis, Zois of life.
Yes. God makes the days and the hours of life. Okay, and John number 10 to finish off there.
Right. Zitata tain doxan to prosopu to theou. This is going to be a mission. So you seek the
Yes.
glory of the face of God.
Correct. Okay, there's nothing in the Bible that says that. I'm just putting together words. But next time, as I say, we're going to be doing stuff out of the Greek New Testament. Okay, let's finish off tonight by doing a little bit of Bible study, and we'll turn to 1 John chapter 2. And if you've got a Greek New Testament there, you can open it to that as well. And this is a little bit of Bible study using our neuter nouns. So last time we learned that there was a neuter noun called teknon. Anyone remember what teknon means?
Child.
Yeah.
Child. Very good. All right. So child. Let me. So in 1 John, John in his epistle, he loves talking about little children, okay, to the believers, my little children. And 7 times in John's first letter, he uses teknia, which is little children. And the dictionary, the lexical form is teknion. And the eon on the end is a diminutive form of teknon. Teknon is child. Teknion is like saying little child. Okay? 7 times he has this word teknia, which is little children. Now this word, and this is interesting because this is the way Greek works, okay? All the verbs and nouns, they're all connected to each other. English language, where do we get all our words from? Well, we get them from French and from Latin and from German and from Scandinavian. These are where the words come from. And now we get acronyms which are just made up by ourselves. And we make up new words for computer technology. But in Greek, where do they get their words from? Well, they build on other words within their own language. So the word teknon comes from a verb, which is pretty rare, which we don't have too much in the New Testament, tikto, which means to give birth to. So a teknon literally means someone who's been born, a child. And teknia is little children, teknion, a diminutive form of it. Okay. Now, the interesting thing is that in John's first epistle and chapter 2, and only in chapter 2, he also uses another word for little children, and that is paidion. you know how we have today the words pedophile, okay, and pediatrics. They come from another Greek word for child, which is pedon. And literally the normal form is pais, P-A-I-S, but it takes, in the diminutive form, it is paidion. Okay, now this word pais, it can also be used for a servant, okay? Just like in olden English, a man would say, "Hey boy, come here." It's speaking to one of the servants, if it's a younger servant. "Hey boy," or on a building site, an old guy will say, "Hey boy," to one of his apprentices, "Come here." And this is the way this word pais is used. It can mean a servant or a child. And the difference between these two words is this: teknon stresses birth, where you've come from. Paidion, little child, it stresses maturity, the fact that you're still young. Okay? So in chapter 2 of 1 John, John uses both of these words. And I want you to have a look at it is quite interesting. You will remember, I think, the way John talks about little children in this chapter. So I'll get you to read some of these sentences out here in English. Thomas, would you mind reading out the first of these bullet points, and then Tim the second, and then John the third, just as we go down through this list of bullet points here. Now, I haven't written out the whole verse, but you will remember them, okay? If you want to start with the first one, Thomas, and you can do the last one again for us as well, Thomas.
I write to you, little children, teknia, because your sins are forgiven.
Good.
I write to you, fathers, because you have known him.
Okay, very good. John, keep on going.
I write to you, young men, because you have overcome the wicked one.
Good.
I write to little children. No. Padia, because you have
Paidia,
known
yep.
the Father.
Good.
I write to you, fathers, because you have known him.
Yes. Now, I haven't written out the full verse there. And then Thomas, last one again.
I write to you, young men, because you are strong.
Good. Okay, Tim, would you mind reading out this next paragraph here? I hope it's big enough to see on your screen there, or you can look on your own document.
Yep. However, the problem with looking at the passage like this is that, firstly, it does not explain why John uses two different Greek words for little children. Why the difference? Secondly, where does the pattern end? With verse 14 or later? It could be argued that the instructions to the young men continue down into verses 15 or 16 and maybe even beyond. This spoils the symmetry of the pattern somewhat, with a lopsided ending. The pattern also seems wrong, for it starts with little children, then goes to fathers, and comes back to young men.
Okay, so commentators down through time have wondered what's going on here. If there is a pattern here, why does John use different words for little children instead of using the same one to tip us off that we're dealing with a repetitious pattern? So we have this pattern where we have fathers and young men and little children and two different sorts of young children. What is going on here? This is what some of the commentators say is happening, this pattern here. But I want to suggest to you that a better way of understanding what is happening here is to look at a slightly bigger picture. That is, look at the whole chapter. As I've said, John uses teknia, little children, 7 times in the whole letter. Where else does he use it in this chapter? Well, here is, in my opinion, the true pattern that we have, and it incorporates more than these verses 14 and 15. And you'll notice that we have perfect symmetry happening here. So let's notice, what are some of the differences? What are some of the lines that I've added in here that weren't there before? Are we starting at the same place? Yes, we are. Both of the sets of patterns start at verse 12 with this expression, I write to you, little children, teknia, because your sins are forgiven. What other lines have been added in then into this different pattern here?
The last two.
The last two, very good. Down in verse 18, we have this word, paidion again. And so if you look at part C in both of them, both part Cs have paidion, not teknon or teknia. And then we have what do we have? What Greek word do we have down in the last one? We've got teknia again, down at the end of the chapter. Now here's what I suggest is happening. John writes to all of the Christians using the word teknia, little children. You've all been born again. Doesn't matter what age or stage we are at in our Christian life. If we are God's people, we've been born again. This applies to us. We're all God's children. We're all God's little children. We are precious to him. But then, starting with the fathers, twice over, John goes down through 3 stages of Christian growth. He starts with the fathers, and they don't actually change. But the young men, he gives them 2 sets of instructions, and the paidia, the youngest ones in terms of age of these little children, all of us are little children, but there are young Christians, new Christians, and he speaks to them twice. And in the first triplet, he gives very brief instructions, but in the second repeated pattern, he expands these the instructions out quite a bit for the young men and for the little children. And then he wraps it up again at the end, speaking to all of us, and says, now, little children, abide in him, that when he may appear, we shall have confidence before him. All of us are looking for his coming. All of us, verse 12, have had our sins forgiven. We're all his people. But in between, there are 3 stages of Christian growth. Now, here's how I explain it. Okay, in Scotland, they have a few interesting additional words in the English language to what normal English-speaking people have. Okay, so the Scottish people, they speak of bairns. Have you ever heard of that word? It's a word for children. Bairns, B-A-I-R-N-S, and it stands for, or it's short for, born ones. You're born. You're a bairn. Okay? But they also have a word called weans. And weans is short for wee ones or small ones. And this is, I think, what John is doing here. He is talking about the fact that all believers, we've all been born. We're all teknia. We've all been born again. But there are also wee ones, small ones in the faith. And there are young men, and they're getting strong. They're fighting back and overcoming sins and overcoming Satan in their lives. And they need to be warned about the dangers of the world. That's what he goes on to in the second set. He says in verse 14b, I write to you, young men, because you are strong. And then he says, love not the world. And he's writing particularly still to the young men. And he also writes to the fathers. What does he say to the little children, the wee ones, the small ones, the second time? Well, he gives a great big long paragraph, actually, about the danger of people coming with false doctrines. Why? Because new believers in the faith, they are particularly susceptible to false teaching. And so I suggest to you there is actually a perfect pattern here if we distinguish between the 2 Greek words and do not see them as referring to the same thing, but they are referring to 2 different things in the Greek here. And so we have an all-inclusive word for all of God's people. We're all born again. We're all little children. But then within that, we have fathers who have known the one who is from the beginning. That is, known Christ. And you can't really expand on that, can you? You can't go on and give more about that. This is what the aim of the Christian life is, to know him, says Paul, that I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings, being made conformable to his death. Knowing Christ, that is what the fathers are interested in. And then the young men, there you see some Christians, they go through a growth spurt where they're really getting stuck into God's word and they're really starting to grow spiritually in leaps and bounds. The word of God abides in them. They're overcoming and they're making progress spiritually. But there's a danger for them of being sidetracked by the world. And then John writes to the little children, and he warns them because they're vulnerable of the dangers of false teachers. And that's from verse 18 all the way down to verse 27. So anyway, there is my suggestion for how this pattern works, based on the fact that there are two different Greek words that are being used to give us two slightly different ideas. What do you make of that? Anyone? Very briefly, any questions, comments, criticisms, suggestions, additions?
Pretty good.
So you'll find... Sorry, Tim, go.
Yeah, or just, I don't know. I think there's a question in here somewhere. So it seems like it fits, and as you said, you said that it seems to fit. Maybe the question is something along the lines of, how do we know? Like we see something, right, in the Bible, and we see it sometimes even in English, where you can identify patterns, and then in Greek we'll identify patterns. How do we know that we're not trying to force something that we want to be there, rather than... Does that make sense?
Yes. So
Yep.
The answer is, Tim, there's no way of knowing. For example, all these fantastic, great Greek professors, they will go with option number one, this one up here, because in my opinion, they're only looking at two verses. That is what is, and they're saying, well, the pattern has to fit into one-liners within these two verses, because you can see the pattern. There is some pattern there. John keeps on repeating this: fathers, young men, little children. But as I say, if you're a stickler for symmetry and you're really passionate about things being neat and tidy, there are certain advantages to this. It all fits into two verses, but there are certain things which are not symmetrical here. And I listed three sort of problems with that sort of pattern. But yeah, there are professors who, in their commentaries, they will follow this pattern. Now, who's to say they're not right? Well, not me. But I'm just suggesting, well, actually, maybe there is... one of the things that I don't like about what they say is often they say this: these Greek words do not mean anything different. Oftentimes, Bible writers just use a different word for variety. My thinking is, well, actually, if God has decided to inspire John to use a different word here, I need to be asking, why a different word here? Number one, it throws me off the scent. It shows that there's not a correspondence in the pattern. But why? God doesn't choose words just randomly when he inspires his word. So anyway, I'm not saying I'm right. One day we'll get to heaven. As my grandmother said, we'll all find out who's right and who's wrong then. But I just think that we should study the Bible carefully. So sometimes Greek will help us to notice some of these connections, and they may be buried under English words. In English, we just say little children in both cases. We can't distinguish between these two different ways of saying little children. But in Greek, John does. So the question is, why does John use a different word here? Some of these Greek professors who go with option A here, they say, well, John just likes variety. I sort of think, maybe, or maybe there's a good reason. Wonder where else I might be able to find some information. So, yeah, we want to look at the context. We want to be Bible readers. That's all. And if we're reading the Bible seriously in Greek, we will notice some of these words that line up with each other, and then some that are different, and think, what's going on? So I'm just suggesting an alternative. I can't prove to you that this was really what was going on in the Apostle John's mind. I could be wrong. And we've got to be as tentative as that when we say some things. Can't be too dogmatic about it. Okay, everyone, there we are for tonight. Happy holidays. Keep on doing a bit every week. And next time we meet together, I'll send you out an email. And I might even get your feedback on whether you want to do something on Anzac Day evening or not. We'll see. how you're going. But keep on working at your Greek until you got these 6 chapters, and you can you're really feeling confident with them and the vocabulary, because this is honestly, we've laid the concrete slab of the building. Okay, with this we can go and start reading the New Testament, and I find that very exciting. Anyway, Thomas, would you like to close in prayer for us, and we will call it a night?
Our God and our Father, we give thanks to Thee, Lord, for this time You've given us to be able to learn a little bit more, Lord, of this great language, to help us to read the Bible in its original form. Lord, we give thanks to Thee for Andrew, for enabling him to teach us, and for the patience You've given him to teach us and instruct us. We pray that each one of us might be able to work on it and help us to develop this useful skill. We give thanks to Thee again for all Your goodness in this time You've given us together, and during this break, each one will be kept safe and well. And we give thanks and seek Your grace and praise His humbly in Lord and our Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay, good night, everybody. Thanks again for all your hard work, and we'll see you in a few weeks' time.
Thank you.